The Holy Gospel according to St. Mark, the first chapter. Now as soon as Jesus and the disciples left the synagogue, they entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. Now Simon's mother-in-law was in bed with a fever, and they told him about her at once. He came and took her by the hand and lifted her up. And then the fever left her, and she began to serve them. That evening, at sundown, the city brought to him all who were sick or possessed with demons, and the whole city was gathered around the door. And he cured many who were sick with various diseases, and cast out many demons. He would not permit the demons to speak, because they knew him. In the morning, while it was still very dark, he got up and went out to a deserted place, and there he prayed. And Simon with his companions hunted for him, and when they found him, they said to him, "Everyone is searching for you." He answered, "Let us go on now to the neighboring towns, that I might proclaim the message there also, for that is what I came to do." He went throughout Galilee, proclaiming the message in their synagogues, and casting out demons. The Gospel of the Lord. The American Atheist Association has hired airplanes to pull banners and circle around all of those people who are going to be tailgating outside of Lucas Oil Stadium this afternoon. And those banners are said to be reading, "Football beats church anytime." Really? You know, and I thought about that first time I read it. I thought, But then I thought a little bit more. And as I thought a little bit more, I have to admit, I agree with that statement. and think about this for just a moment. Right? And I thought about myself. Whenever I do watch football, I only watch football with my closest friends or my oldest son. And whenever you watch football, you have a couple beers and some really tasty, spicy food. And you're there and you yell, you holler, you cheer, you have a good time. Right? And what's not to enjoy about that? When you seriously stop and think about what football is, in that aspect, it does beat church anytime. Yeah, I remember back in October when I was on sabbatical, it wasn't infrequent with my wife, Joanne, and I were down at Starbucks on Sunday morning, and I can tell you, Starbucks on Sunday morning is completely delightful. I mean, it really is. I mean, in the midst of a busy world, and busy times, and busy lives, to have an hour to just kind of sit there and talk to your spouse is a great thing. And what's remarkable is, how many of my members kind of came through there as well. I mean, it's a great thing. And all of these things, absolutely, church doesn't stand a prayer of a chance in the face of all of this. Now, I know for generation upon generation upon generation, church was the only game in town on Sunday mornings. And our collective society supported that idea. So it was the only thing to do on Sunday until late Sunday afternoon. Maybe watch some football, but you didn't have the great expanse of games or possibilities open to you. And it was the only game in town. But I can tell you, over 23 years, I've listened to this now for at least 23 years. I can't believe they play soccer on church on Sundays. The reason they play soccer on Sundays is because people want to play. And we live in a collective time where our collective community has decided not to tacitly support Sunday morning worship. And when that has happened, obviously, church loses to football all the time in that aspect. And here's what, we can look around ourselves and we can see what we've done in response to that. We've decided we want to make church entertaining. There is nothing worse than a pastor who wants to be funny. You know, there's few things in this world that are more pathetic than a clergy person who thinks that they're cool. I mean, it's a pathetic thing to watch. Right? And we decided, right, we gotta be entertaining. And I don't know if you've been to places that have decided they want to be entertaining, but it doesn't hold a candle to the NFL. Ever. It doesn't hold a candle to the NFL. I mean, we can't do it. Now, that's not to say that we've all been to church where it felt like walking on broken glass. We've all been there. But that's not to say that's what we're after. But I'm offering to you that if your criteria is entertainment, we'll always be church. It's not even a competition. But I think we're chasing after something else. And the story in this morning's gospel points us towards chasing after something else. Because of what the story says. So when the gospel story picks up, Jesus, if you were here last week, you remember the story from last week. Last week, Jesus is in the synagogue and he casts a demon out of a man. Now that's impressive. He casts a demon out, and it got everybody's attention. And so he casts this demon out, and the synagogue services end, and they leave the synagogue in Capernaum, and it is a small town. So they leave the synagogue in Capernaum, and they go over to Peter's house. That's what it says. He goes over to Peter's house, and there, Peter and Andrew and James and John, they're all going into the house, and they say, oh, by the way, Jesus, Peter's mother-in-law is sick. She's got a fever. So Jesus goes into the room, and this is what the story says. He takes her by the hand and lifts her up. And that's very significant because the word that really St. Mark uses there is the same word used in other places for raised her up. He raised her up. He gave her, right, resurrection is a process of giving you your life back. He gave her life back, and immediately she begins to serve because she had her life back, because she was able to. And then sundown, the day comes to an end, the end of the Sabbath, and as the Sabbath comes to an end, all of the people in the town, they see this. Right? This is pretty cool. Right? This is pretty cool. Right? So Sabbath's over, and so now we've got all these sick people and all these demon-possessed people. It really makes you wonder about what Capernaum must have been like. There's all these sick and demon-possessed people, and they're all standing out there at the door. And this is pretty cool, right? Because he's got this guy who can solve these problems. And he's healing, he's casting out demons, he's shushing the demons, because the demons are the only ones not daft enough to not know what's going on. And he's shushing them all, and he's going on, and everybody's like, oh, this is really cool. Right? Can you imagine being here? What a great, great story. Everybody, he hasn't started feeding people yet, but you got to imagine, right? They're already probably thinking about it. Sickness is healed, demons driven out, everything is moving right along. Right? It's a great morning. It's a great evening. Right? Everything's great. And so they find Jesus, and Jesus in that morning he goes off and starts to pray. And they're looking for him. Right? They're looking for him. You got to think, everybody in this house, like, wow, we got paid. Right? All our sicknesses, all of our demons, we got paid. And what does Jesus say? He says it's time to go. It's time to go. Because it's not why I'm here. It's not what he came for. Let's go to the other towns. Let's go to the other towns. And when we get to the other towns, we're going to drive those demons out. We're going to heal their sicknesses. Because what he's saying is that what Jesus is doing is not just about them. And it's not just about us. It's as if Jesus is suggesting that he has come to push back the boundaries of the evil one. He's come to push back the boundaries of Satan. He's come to push back the boundaries of evil, to push back and make room for God's world in this world. It's not just about healing the sick. It's not just about driving away the demons. It's about pushing back at everything in the world that is evil and broken, corrupt, and creating space for God's world to happen. here's the best part of the whole story, and that wasn't good. He invites those 4 men to go with him. He invites them to come along the journey. He invites them to be part of that. He invites them to experience the pressing back of evil, the pressing back of demons, the pressing back of the world's brokenness, so that there is now room for God to function in the world again. See, that's a remarkable story. And it tells us something about what happens when we come into this place. You see, because coming into this place is not and cannot just be about us. Coming into this place cannot just be about our entertainment or our enjoyment or our problems, although Jesus finds those things to be immensely important. But a story is not just us. The story is about coming to this place for the purposes of leaving this place. Just as Jesus comes to Capernaum not to stay, but to leave, we come here not to stay, but to leave. And to enter back into the world as God's people, as Jesus' disciples, to push back at the boundaries of a world that is broken and consumed by the evil one. And that's a dramatically different story than maybe what we sometimes are looking for. You see, because the purposes are not to come and stay and congratulate ourselves for having the story correct. The purposes are not to come and somehow create some sort of uber-Christian or some super Lutheran or some sort of perspective, but to be able to gather together our lives for the purposes of leaving into a world that has been filled with demons. Push back at that world so that there is space for God to create a new one. And space for something new and remarkable to happen, and to watch it happen before our very eyes. And those things happen not inside of this place, but they happen inside of our families, in our neighborhoods, in our communities, in our jobs, in our schools, in every place that we're sent to in the span of this week. That's happens here. That's what the message that comes out of this place is. And in that sort of perspective, you see, the NFL doesn't stand a chance because it's not even the same game that we're playing. It's not even the same thing that we're after. So yes, indeed, you see, football beats church anytime. If all you're coming for is enjoyment, entertainment. But if you want to see the world transform, if you want to see the presence of God in places that you could never have imagined seeing it, if you want to see people's lives become something dramatically new, then church beats football all the time. All the time. Amen. As we prepare to sing the next hymn, the question is, what does the world look like when Jesus pushes back at the world's brokenness? And this hymn is selected because it speaks to that very issue. The question of what does it look like to push back at the boundaries of the evil one? This hymn speaks to what that looks like. Let us sing it.